I'm Dr. Craig Brown of the Holistic Health Social Network. We're going to continue talking about expansive medicine. And we're going to start again where we left off at the beginning, which is the oral cavity. Eventually we're going to work through the whole system, so be patient. We're in the oral cavity, and what is the process that goes on to break down our food system? It's kind of complex. Let's talk about teeth. Teeth have cusps and fossils. Fossil is basically like a ditch, the hole in the middle of our tooth. The cusp is the pointy part. What the cusps are doing when we masticate is it's basically grinding your food. To me, it's like a great juicer. And I'll talk to you about juicing probably in one of the next few episodes coming up. Juicing and the magic of combining certain kinds of juices is amazing. And it's amazing for our health. It's amazing for certain problems we have. And I personally, when I discovered juicing, it changed my life. So we're going to get to that. But a natural juicer that God has given us is our teeth and mastication, and the way each tooth fits into a certain spot of the tooth below or above it. And as I said, mastication is the first step of breaking down food. It's basically juicing, getting the most important enzymes, vitamins, minerals out of the food that we eat. And we'll discuss what types of food I think are best and so on later on as well. But taking out the enzymes and the vitamins and the minerals in a fashion where we're not overheating, because if you heat, some people say over 104, others say up to 114 degrees, which is not very hot, then you destroy most of the enzymes that our fruits and vegetables have for us. Mastication does not do that. Mastication does not destroy. Mastication is preparing that food to be properly and easily processed in our body, digested in our body. Now, the key word, while I hesitated, is easily is a very important term, and I'll be using it as we go on. Because the more difficult we make the digestive process, the more energy our body is using in forms of ATP to digest or process that food, whether it be dead food or undigestible food, or food that's processed or has additives in it. Our body is basically supplying that whole procedure with energy that we could be using to have better cognitive abilities, to think better, to think more clearly, to jump higher, to be stronger, to work out better, to go to the gym or just feel energy, to enjoy, to be happy with your family, to have the energy to run around with the kids. Instead, you're using that ATP, that energy, to try to digest or do something, some kind of process to get it out of your body of undigestible foods. If foods are in your body undigestible for too long a period of time, they ferment, they putrefy, they turn into what we call toxins. And these are all usually creating an acidic medium in your body. And as we said prior, acidic mediums are mediums that cancer and microorganisms, viruses, yeast, parasites, the bad bacteria thrive in. And it's something that we want to avoid like the plague. No pun intended. So this is where we want to go with this. We start with mastication, which is basically extracting, just like a juice would extract all those goodies that we love to have. At the same time, our body is secreting enzymes in our mouth to break down from the salivary glands, the parotid glands. There's a breakdown process in the mouth. So, of course, it's easy. Chew your food. Mom always told us, chew your food. So we got to chew our food, and we got to take our time, because we want that process to start in the mouth. If we skip that process, we're not going to be digesting as properly as we should be, and your body's going to have a harder time breaking that food down. After that food is properly broken down in the mouth, then it goes to be digested. What I talk about in that process is food combining, food mixing. What we want to do is keep it alcohol. So before we get into that whole process of extracting, the mouth is a very interesting machine. The movement of the jaw, we move in excursion, we move laterally, which is called lateral excursions. We move up and down, and we're constantly extracting and crushing food. It's processed, and it's energy consuming. So we try to, and we should try to use the best source of nutrients, best source of vitamins, best source of minerals that we possibly can, to make it easy for our body to assimilate, to break down, to digest our food sources. So we can have that energy to stay young. And as I said before, become younger, which is a wonderful book, and it's one of my required books for the certification, and it's called Become Younger by Dr. Norman Walker. And it's required. I recommend people who are not doing the certification to pick it up. And I may have it on the website available. They're old editions. They date back years and years. I'm going to try to have them available on the website. So where we're at now is mastication. Chew your food. Listen to mom. We want to keep the food as alkaline as possible. And one of the means of keeping the food alkaline is you have to know what to eat and what not to, of course. You have to know what to eat together. Food combining is as important as knowing what to eat and what not to. And we all know organic is of course the best to do if we can. And of course we know all of these, the pesticides and all the additives and so on, the soil. Organic soil, good soil, if you know it comes from a very good organic farm, you're getting the highest possible amount of minerals and vitamins and enzymes that you would get, even from a farm that's organic. It is not as careful with its soil. So there's different levels of organic, and I'll get into that later on. Our food choices are very important. I'm vegan, and I'm 100% vegan. I try to be 100% vegan, but I do, as I say, I cheat. And I'm going to get into this number with you later on. In my opinion, and many others like me, 80% or over is therapeutic, meaning that you get healthier when you try to stay 80% raw, or what we call living foods or superfoods. 80% we measure on the plate. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's the amount of the plate. So if I go off my vegan, I try to have at least 80% raw along with it. And my cheat is fish. I not only prefer, I demand wild, not farm raised. because wild, even though fish, and I'll tell you why fish is acidic, it's not alcohol, and later on, but why I'll do wild is because wild is from the ocean, and the minerals, the natural minerals in the water, at least some healthy benefit to you. Of course, you're going to get fish oils too. So I'll do that. If I really want to get crazy, I'll do chicken, but I do vegetarian fed, free range, no antibiotics, no steroids, and I'll still do my oil. Now I'll get into recipes with that. In my process, there's going to be stages. I would never ever expect someone to be at what I would consider stage 3 or stage 4 of the process, which is going closer and closer to where we're talking 80, 90, 95% raw living foods and superfoods. But as I said, if we can approach, and it could take us weeks, months, years to approach that 80% level to 85%, you will see a drastic change in your health. Up until that point, you're basically dieting, and we work with dieting as well. So, so as I mentioned before, very important for yourself, your parents. If someone's complaining of bleeding when they brush, and we go back to periodontal disease connection to heart disease, because we do a lot of work with heart disease and how to prevent it through diet and through supplements. And my father passed away from cardiomyopathy, but they gave him 3 months to live, and we got him an extra 8 years. The only reason we couldn't get him, we could have gotten more was he wasn't compliant for the next year or two. One of his doctors put him on something that I felt was completely useless and not necessary. In fact, it sped up the process. But we'll get into that later on as well. So we talked about the oral enzymes. We talked about the glands and ducts in the mouth that will secrete enzymes to digest your food.